Much has been made about Jalen Hurts and his status around the league and where he should rank. But we're going to do an interesting exercise today looking at Jalen Hurts versus the quarterbacks he's slated to face on our schedule. And the odds might be tipped in someone's favor more than you thought. What's up? It's your boy Cintron coming back at you with another analysis video, and I kid you not, that's my real name. Today's article, quarterback versus quarterback. Look at the Eagles' 2023 schedule. How many games does Philadelphia have a quarterback advantage in? So, we're purely looking at the quarterbacks. We could also include the defenses in the analysis, but it just would make it a full exercise of full roster versus roster. But we're going to look at the offenses and see if they can keep pace, theoretically speaking, of course, with the Eagles' offense, how they stack up. But specifically the quarterbacks, because, yeah, like I said, it might surprise you. We all know Jalen Hurts acquitted himself very nicely in the Super Bowl, having 304 passing yards, 70 rushing yards, three rushing touchdowns. He also had the touchdown to A.J. Brown. I think that might have been his only passing touchdown, but no interceptions. The one thing marring his overall score would be the fumble that he had that was returned for a touchdown, I believe. And, it was kind of a thing. It was a penalty on the play, actually, and he fumbled because the ball was slick, like the field conditions. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But he still went out there and responded in turn with a touchdown drive, which he mostly got done by handling on the ground, showing that he was not gun shy. And they called, I think, the first play from scrimmage that, when the Eagles got the ball back was a rushing play. And, he handled it adeptly. So it's just showing the trust that they have in him. And he showed up in big moments. So let's get started. First, looking at week 1, him versus Mac Jones. You see the numbers here, man. He was just, an underwhelming quarterback last year. This is easy. Mac, he's in his third year, but he didn't show progression last year. And yeah, he had a dearth of weapons to work with on the offense. That being said, his maturity was not up to par as well. He just didn't look mentally prepared to play in the games, and he also had an injury somewhere down the line, I think later in the year. It was just a disaster. So I feel confident in saying that, Jalen Hurts, his battle is his. I don't think there's anyone out there that would make an argument otherwise. This is an interesting one. Again, I think we're facing him in week 2. Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins. He didn't have a bad year at all. 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but he was typical, playoff Kirk. He didn't show up, and in the big moments as well. Last season, he didn't show up. The record really doesn't reflect how razor thin their margin of victory was. They won so many games just by virtue of one score less. It was a record 11 games or so, 10 games, at least 10 games, I think, that were won by a single score. And come the playoffs, they didn't show up. The Vikings blew them out, destroyed them, and it was just a disaster, debacle. That being said, this guy says going into last year, you'd say that Kirk Cousins was a superior quarterback, but Jalen definitely eclipsed him with his play. He was just steady, the antithesis of Kirk Cousins last year. So I still would give that edge to Jalen, even when these two teams match up again. Tampa Bay, we don't even know who their quarterback is going to be. It's going to be either Trask or Mayfield. And Mayfield, he's bounced around the league, had a chance to assert himself in Los Angeles last year, didn't do that. So you don't really feel confident in him saying that he has an edge, any type of edge, going head-to-head against Jalen. He has more games played in his career, but that makes a quarterback not. Makes a quarterback does not. That does not. Anyways, moving on. All right, Washington Commanders, Sam Howell. Basically a rookie. He played in a meaningless Week 18 game, and he won the game. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys were firing on all cylinders, but that's not saying much, man, because they went on to underwhelm in postseason. Even though they did win their wild card game against the Bucks were overmatched, and against the 49ers, coming up against a true powerhouse, they wilted, and it was Dak once again. So, anyways, we can see that guy later. Los Angeles Rams. This one could be an interesting matchup because I mean Matthew Stafford. I don't think it's as clear cut as this. I mean they're make it. Yes, his record. Like I love what Bill, not Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells says. Yeah, I mean, well, no, I think it might be Belichick. Your record reflects what you are. You can't outdo that. And last year, Matt Stafford was 3-6 before he bowed out with an injury. And can they right the ship? Maybe, but also his top weapon Cooper Kupp also went out, so that'll hamper his not development, but his ability. And they've been slowly falling apart since they cashed it all in and won Super Bowl the year before the Eagles went in 2021. So I mean, not saying they're cooked and not saying they're leftovers, but they have to contend with their own superpower, the 49ers in their own division, which the 49ers, it's their division until someone else says otherwise. And the Rams, they've fallen from grace. And I like Stafford, man. He's a gritty guy, but I just don't see him getting it done with the amount of talent he has surrounding him. The Jets. This could be an interesting one because it depends on a lot of coalescing pieces coming in. So Rodgers left. He has a lot of guys coming with him. Alan Lazard signed a 4-year, $44 million deal for $11 million per year, as well as Cobb joined him. Some people on defense as well. Adrian Amos taking the place of the hurt Chuck Clark, who went out with the ACL injury. So, I mean, the Jets, they have some interesting, like I said, some interesting pieces. And it'll be interesting to see how Aaron Rodgers plays with his, initial season with gangrene. So I don't know. This one I could say it could be a toss up, given like the defenses on both sides. But at this point, I would say I give the edge to Jalen Hurts just by a smidge, because Aaron he's older, and last year Rodgers' numbers it took a dip. Yeah, he was 26-12, but he usually doesn't even throw picks into the outside of the single digits. So I mean, 64%. He's definitely down on that number. 3,600 yards down. 8-9 record. Yeah, it just wasn't a typical Rodgers year, but he was playing hurt. That lower leg injury just hampering him. Still had a quarterback rating of 91.1, which is just stellar Rodgers, even at with an atypical year from him. But it's a lot of moving pieces. So I would say just with the instability that would ding him. So I mean, it could be a Green Bay, not Green Bay, a former Green Bay Packers legend quarterback, Favre type outing. We had the Minnesota Vikings in their initial year, but that is yet to be seen. So as of right now, I'll give Hurts the edge until proven otherwise. Miami Dolphins, this is another interesting matchup because a lot of these matchups are going to be back-to-back. We're going to have a tough gauntlet in the middle of the season. We're going to have to go against quarterbacks and teams that are pretty strong, pretty fierce, and a lot of them were playoff teams last year. The Jets weren't, but they were pushing. They were in the competition until late in the season. So Tua, I'm not even trying to pronounce his last name, but they both played at Alabama. Famously, he replaced Jalen Hurts, and they went on to win the national championship. But Jalen did have a supportive role in that year when Tua got hurt. I think it might have been in the championship game. He came in, won, and then he went back to the bench. But it just showed his mettle that he wasn't at all worried about being displaced, and went on to be a key driving factor in them winning a ring that year. So Tua, his problem is just he can't stay healthy, and we don't know truly what we're going to see from him over the course of a 17-game span. So that being said, I like to think that that Tua, he hasn't had the time to develop. We saw glimpses last year, and then he lit it up with those two speedy receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but we don't know how much Tua we're going to get, similar to Rashad Penny on our roster. The guy is exceptionally talented, but for how long, what duration are you going to have the guy available in your roster, to play in actual live games? You don't know. So just by virtue of that, availability being the best ability, we'll put Hurts on the edge, or we'll give him the edge. All right, this is interesting. Weeks 9 and 14, we played the Dallas Cowboys. Week 9 at home, and then at Dallas in week 14. So, yeah, man, looking at Dak, I mean, he wasn't a complete dumpster fire last year, but he had a streak of 5, 6, or 7 or 8 games. It was something ridiculous where he threw a pick consecutively, and it was just kind of amazing. It's like once you get on those type of streaks, it just seems like everything bad that can happen happens, and things just the ball just doesn't bounce your way. And he did have a pick against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's like, oh, people was like, oh, does that turn over a new leaf? Nope. I think he threw a pick or two in the San Francisco game, and he might have been Dumbledore, I like to call him that picked him off. He turned into a decent corner out there on the island for San Francisco, but yeah, that numbers were just not impressive. He had played 5 games. He lit us up. That's due to Jonathan Gannon playing a passive shell defense. 66% completion rate, 23-10, and the numbers really just don't tell the tale of how poorly he played. He was just inconsistent. Week to week, what were you getting? You didn't know. And yeah, his how horrible his play was in certain stretches is hidden behind these decent looking numbers. So yeah, I mean, he struggled with injury. Jalen did as well. He missed a couple games, was compromising a couple others. But that being said, you give the edge here to Jalen because, I mean, going into the season last year, similar to Kirk, you would give Dak the edge and say they maybe were the favorite to win the division, but things end up being topsy-turvy, and we give this one to Hurts. So Patrick Mahomes, this is the one. It's an open and shut case. Even though, like, I would say that he outplayed, he was outplayed by Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, but he also made the plays that came to him. So it wasn't by a huge margin. I would say, like, if you had to put it over like 100 score, it'd be like a 5-point margin if he outplayed him. But look at his numbers. He's amazing. 41 for 12, and 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 67% completion rate, 5,000 yards. He won the freaking MVP. And deservedly so, man. He played like on one leg in some parts of the postseason, and he just gritted it out. And his quarterback rating 105, man, amazing. You give him the edge, man. He won the Super Bowl. He did what he needed to get done, and tore up the defense, both in the running game and passing game. He didn't do it by virtue of running, but he called the right plays. When they were in bad plays, he got them out of it and audible and such. And until Jalen wins this one head to head, it's not gonna be possible. I mean, it's gonna be hard to give him the edge. So this is the one of the ones maybe we have him losing here. And week 12 versus Buffalo. This is another tough one for me because I like what this author has to say. We're gonna read it out. But Josh Allen, 35-14, like definitely not bad. 60%, which should be a little bit higher. 4,200 yards. Great. Considering he has an awesome talent in Stephon Diggs out there on the edge, catching passes for him. He had another banner year. I think he had like 1,100, 1,200, 1,300 yards or so, and maybe double-digit touchdowns. But quarterback rating a little bit worse than Jalen here. Allen still seems to like that closer mentality, and yeah, I admit yes, but it's tough. He's in the AFC conference, and just you have to go through a gauntlet of teams like the Chiefs. Maybe this year the Jets, the Dolphins, which I think they played in they played in the divisional round. No, or the wild card round. It might have been. I forget who. I think wild card round because they had to play. Chiefs got the bye. Yeah, only one team needs to bye since a couple years ago. But the Bengals, they have to survive these guys. They got beaten by both of those teams in previous years, and they both went on to play in the Super Bowl. So it's a tough thing, but it's just by nature of you being in the conference you're in, you have to go out there and get it done. No excuses, allowed. So he's been on the precipice of superstardom for the last couple of years, but failed to close in big moments. He has a habit of playing too much hero ball that gets him in trouble, which gets gets him in trouble. He also makes some dubious decisions in crucial moments. So that is tied to hero ball mentality. He's a gunslinger, but when you need to be a game manager, you need to learn how to toe that line. The Bills have been outstanding in the divisional round of the AFC playoffs the last 2 years, like I said, for versus the eventual AFC Championship participant. The window for Buffalo Super Bowl is closing fast. Part of that could be on Allen shoving his window sill down. He's able to get the ball out quick, though, take chances when he runs. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I would say just by nature of the production and the result, you would give Hurts the edge, but it's razor thin, like the difference between them, just because I would say the difference is like he just hasn't been. I mean, he hasn't turned into a monster like Jalen did last year, and he was on the cup. I would say not last year, but the year before that. Like, man, this guy gonna turn the corner, but he wasn't able to come out and prove it this past season. If he took another step, that'd have been another thing. But he took a little bit of a step back. Like I'd say a half step or maybe a whole step. But Jalen, if he's able to elevate this game this year, definitely you can put him right there squarely behind Mahomes, or maybe even in neck and neck with Mahomes as the best quarterback in the game. But yeah, this one goes to Hurts. San Francisco, we don't even know who it's going to be. Brock Purdy just, we have to see. He's a rookie. If he can have a follow through act, still don't know, or if it's going to be Sam Darnold, or if it's going to be Trey Lance. This is unsettled, so I just got to throw this out. Hurts get the kind of almost default win here. This one is another interesting one, a tough one. Geno Smith, he had a career year. Former second round pick with the Jets, and then didn't do well with them. Flamed out, for lack of a better word, but this is sport around him. Played in all 17 games, 9-8 record, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, so he kept that number very, very manageable. Had, I think, at some point the best completion percentage in the league, 69.8%, 4,200 yards, 100 quarterback rating. So I mean, very, very solid. And he also can be mobile, even though he's not as mobile as Hurts. But just that was the extent of his year. It was a it was a good year. I would say on the low tier, great year. But yeah, it just doesn't reflect in the victory column. And maybe you can attribute that to him not having as strong a defense as we had, and there's nothing he can do about that. But you break it a couple of pegs down from where Jalen had, from the year that Jalen had last year. But can he repeat this year? That is the big question. That is, people question that more than they do Hurts. So I'll give Hurts the edge here. But yeah, he's a good quarterback. He's 32 though, so. Was that just a one-time deal, a one-night stand type of deal, or are we going to see that from him going forward? So that's the question, and people are doubting that. And in week 16 and 18, we faced the New York Giants at home, week 16, and away at the New York Giants on January 7th, week 18. So Daniel Jones, this was the easy decision to make. Good completion percentage, 67%. 3,200 yards, so 15 touchdowns and 5. He was like a poor man's Jalen Hurts to some extent, because he had some like 400, 500 yards and a handful of touchdowns on the ground as well. So he can get it done. 9-6 and 1 record, but they just kind of collapsed. They started out hot. They started out like maybe 5-0, or like 7-0, or not 7-0, but it was a pretty good mark. And then by the midway point, they had lost their way. It just showed they were playing to the extent of their powers. They had free agent receivers, practice squad receivers, they were throwing to on the edges, and they did make some upgrades, but just not enough to close that gap between them and Philly. And it's going to be tougher sledding for everybody in the NFC East this year. So it's not going to reflect in the record, even if they do improve. So I just don't think Daniel Jones is the guy to lead them. He's a good quarterback, and he can have great moments, but overall he's playing more towards the ceiling than Hurts is. We still don't know what the iceberg truly looks like in regards to Hurts, but we kind of have a solid picture of what Daniel Jones is right about now. So I don't think anybody that's not a homer would give him the advantage over Hurts. But that's the gamut of quarterbacks to go against. So that's 16, or well, according to game 16 and 1 advantage, because we played division rivals twice. But yeah, I would definitely say these guys. It gives us a competitive competitive advantage, a very good advantage going into each and every game. Now that we have Jalen Hurts at the helm, leading the ship and steering. So, anyways, we're gonna get up out of here. But you're not even watching though. But it's all good, because as always, it's fly Eagles fly, and let's motherfucking go. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like. Thanks for watching. Check me out at Cintron, Cintron Anime, Cintron Life, or Cintron Laughs, or other social media.